to the 2021-2022 College Bowl Picks. I'm your host, John Sachs, and this year joining me from Shaker Heights, Ohio is Richard Sachs.
You got it. Let's go.
All right, let's get started. This Friday, December 17th, we've got the Bahamas Bowl in Nassau. That's going to be Middle Tennessee State at 6-6 against Toledo at 7-5. Dad, who you got?
Oh, of course, Toledo. University of Toledo. It's my father's undergraduate alma mater. And the O's are pronounced as A's, Toledo. So it's University of Toledo if you're from Lucas County.
Toledo, Ohio. I also have Toledo, Ohio in this one. Can't tell you how many times Dad and I have driven through Toledo en route to Cleveland from Grosse Pointe back in the day. So got to pull for Toledo and Jackie. Moving on to the Cure Bowl in Orlando, Florida, also this Friday. That's Northern Illinois at 9-4 against Coastal Carolina. Now, Rosie and I went to the Northern Illinois-Michigan game at the Big House, and it's a MAC team. They were in the MAC championship game. For those reasons, I've got to go with Northern Illinois. Dad, who you got?
Oh, much more simply, it's just MAC respect, Midwestern respect, of course. I'm going for Northern Illinois at 9-4 to upset Coastal Carolina.
All right. Sounds good. That takes us to Boca Raton, Florida on Saturday, Western Kentucky against Appalachian State. Now, Appalachian State was ranked earlier in the year, but I'm not going to reward them for that. I still have a bit of a thorn in my side whenever I hear Appalachian State. So I'm going with Western Kentucky on this one. Dad?
You never go against Appalachian State. I gave up my tickets for that game. And Gareth and I, much younger Gareth, we were going to hang out in Ann Arbor. Instead, somebody showed up. It might have been you, John, with 2 more tickets. And Gareth and I went the way other side. We were like on the 4th row, as far away from section 16, whatever that is. On the other side, you could barely see things because the people on the side of the field were blocking your view. But that's where our 2 tickets were. And we lost to Appalachian State. So I will never bet against them. If you ever give me a chance, I'm going for Appalachian State. I have converted.
All right, fair enough logic there. I heard they have a really beautiful stadium in Appalachia as well, so you got to give them some credit where credit's due there.
I've been close to their campus, but not there. It's tucked into North Carolina, right by Tennessee, by the Smoky Mountains. I'm sure it's beautiful.
All right, now going back to Dad's old stomping grounds, Albuquerque, New Mexico for the New Mexico Bowl. That's University of Texas, El Paso versus Fresno State. And you know what? El Paso is such a phenomenal electronic music town. I got to go with UTEP in this one. Dad?
I know faculty at both institutions, and El Paso is a fascinating city, so is Fresno State. But I have Fresno State at 9-3, beating 7-5 UTEP.
Makes sense. On to Shreveport, Louisiana, where BYU at 10-2 takes on the University of Alabama, Birmingham. Do I have that right?
Yes, exactly. UAB. Yep.
Okay. And I am going to pick BYU because they've really stepped into their own as becoming a big destination Division I school recently. And that 10-2 record is something that I, as UAB, would not want to face. Who do you have, Dad?
Yeah, I have BYU as well. I'm right with you on all points.
All right. Remaining in the Deep South, moving over to Mobile, Alabama for the LendingTree Bowl. The Eastern Michigan Eagles, is that right? Take on Liberty. Liberty used to be ranked, believe it or not, earlier at the beginning of the season. In early September, they actually almost beat Syracuse, which shout out to Ravi over in Philadelphia for taking care of Liberty. So definitely do not rule out Liberty.
Point of note, Syracuse isn't good this year.
True. Very true. More of a basketball school, at least this year.
They've had very good football teams, but their football team is not good this year. Their reputation is, but their team is not good.
Yeah, so I got to keep it MAC. I got to represent, Michigan and Washtenaw County here with Eastern. Who do you have?
I won't get into my philosophic differences with Liberty. I will say Eastern Michigan. My son Aiden almost went there for classes last fall. Didn't happen, but represent Ypsilanti, Eastern Michigan.
All right, sounds good. Now we're moving on to LA, and I don't mean Louisiana, I mean Los Angeles for the LA Bowl. That's going to be Utah State at 10-3 against Oregon State 7-5. Rosie and I are going to Portland for my very first time next month. And with that in mind, I'm going to have to pull for Oregon State here. Dad, who you got?
I'm on the other side because I've always had a soft spot for Utah State. They're in the Mountain West. Their associate AD, the years I was at UNM, had been the AD my last year at Fort Lewis. Great guy. He's now at Minnesota Moorhead, I think. But he was like associate AD at Utah State. And when they came in, they creamed UNM. And so I've always liked Utah State. I was also finalist for the campus dean Utah State Brigham City position more than a decade ago. So, and the people were very good. And the campus was 93% Mormon. And so in my first interview, I said, oh, I would take the legislator out for coffee. And they said, oh, maybe fruit juice. You know, we're 93% Mormon here, but the people were very nice. I've always liked Utah State. And Kent Stanley's the guy at Minnesota Moorhead who was at Utah State. So I would pick them if they were 1-3, let alone 10-3. Utah State.
All right. Sounds good to me. Back to the Bayou for the New Orleans Bowl. That's Marshall against Louisiana. And, you know, I'm going to give the same explanation that Dad gave last year, and that is simply, we are Marshall. Dad?
And I am not as handsome as Matthew McConaughey and not as young as him. But motherfucker, we are Marshall.
All right. Rock and roll. On to South Carolina, Conway to be exact. We got the Myrtle Beach Bowl. That's going to be Tulsa against Old Dominion. Tulsa's a consistently good AAC team. They made it to the AAC championship game last year against Cincinnati. I'm going to go with Tulsa here. Who do you have, Dad?
I forgot the name of the Tulsa basketball coach for decades, but I really liked him. And just because of that, they're both 6-6 teams, and I know nothing about them. I circled Tulsa.
All right. Sounds good to me. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl in Boise. We got Kent State and Wyoming. Gotta give props to Mac here. Kent State, great Ohio school. I've got Kent State. Dad, who do you have?
Mac team, Kent State, and Aiden is probably going to Kent State Twinsburg, a branch campus in January.
Excellent. Very nice. On to the Frisco Bowl in Frisco, Texas next week. We have UTSA versus San Diego State. I read a phenomenal article in 538.com about the San Diego State punter. He's the best punter in NCAA Division I. He also holds the NCAA top crown for the longest punt this year at 81 yards. You've got to think that he's going to give UTSA some difficult field position in this bowl game. I've got San Diego State.
UTSA used to be Division II. Do you know that? When I was at Fort Lewis, 04-07, UT San Antonio was in our conference. They were in our D2 conference. So they've recently moved up to D1. Cliff Hirschman is a San Diego State grad. So here's Cliff, and I'm going for San Diego State.
All right. Rock and roll. We got the Armed Forces Bowl next in Fort Worth, Texas. Army at 8-3 takes on Mizzou at 6-6. You know, it took Michigan 2 overtimes to beat Army Labor Day weekend 2019. That was a scary one. We were in Boulder, Colorado that weekend watching Dark Star, Dad. If you remember, we watched that at a bowl at a bar on Pearl Street, I believe it was, in Boulder. That was a scary one. We were in enemy territory, the only Michigan fans there. Fortunately, we pulled that one out, and I think Army's going to pull this one out against Mizzou. Dad, who you got?
Well, the soon-to-be ex-second wife is a graduate of Missouri, so I can't be rational at all in this. I'm pulling for Army.
All right. Sounds good. Frisco Classic Bowl, Frisco, Texas. The following day after the old Frisco Bowl is Miami of Ohio at 6-6 taking on North Texas. I've had such a blast my one and only time in Oxford, and I got to represent Miami of Ohio. I believe it. There's a certain AFC North quarterback who went to Miami of Ohio as well, in Ben Roethlisberger. So I like Miami of Ohio in this one. Dad, who do you got?
Oh, absolutely. Miami of Ohio for 10 different reasons.
All right. Sounds good. Moving down into Central Florida, Tampa Gasparilla Bowl. The Florida Gators are 6-6. It's crazy to even think that they were fighting to remain bowl eligible at the end of the year. They've got University of Central Florida. Do not rule out UCF. UCF has been consistently good the last couple of years. That said, Florida got beat up by elite SEC teams all season. UCSF. I'm used to San Francisco. UCF didn't have that same burden in their conference. So I like the Gators here.
Well, I'll tell you, Ray Matura has been a good friend of mine for the last decade, and he's got 3 different conditions that could, on their own, each one could kill him. And he's a University of Florida PhD. So for that reason alone, I'm pulling for Florida in the Gasparilla Bowl.
Sounds good. Hoping Ray Matura pulls through. We got the Hawaii Bowl coming up next after that. That's Memphis against Hawaii. Hawaii is at home and Memphis is a basketball school. So I've got the Hawaiians in this one.
6-7 record, and you made a bowl game? Do you know what? Wear the mini skirt. Wear the shirt open to your navel. Say fuck you and win the game, Hawaii.
All right. Sounds good. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. That is 500 team Ball State versus Georgia State. Gonna have to keep continuing to represent the MAC here with Ball State, Dad.
Always represent the MAC. Ball State, Indiana.
All right, sounds good. Speaking of MAC teams, Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit, Michigan at Ford Field. I attended this bowl about 15 years ago when I was in high school with Uncle John. We had a blast. It was a lot of fun. No skin in that game. I think it was like Middle Tennessee State versus Eastern or something. I do like Western in this one. Western has always had a really awesome fan base, and I feel like they're going to show up for this one. So Western's going to take care of Nevada. Who you got, Dad?
I don't know if the audience knows, my younger brother Leonard was born in Reno, Nevada, about a mile from the University of Nevada campus. And Steve and I always thought they took the wrong baby home from the hospital, although he looks a lot like us. So maybe that's not true. I'm pulling for Western Michigan, Mac.
All right, sounds good. Military Bowl, Annapolis, Maryland, ECU against Boston College. Boston College's mom's law school alma mater. I got a pull for the Bruins. Is that what they're called?
No, the Boston College Eagles.
Thank you.
So mad respect for Mary Beth and her law degree from Boston College. And of course, I'm going for Boston College in this.
Cool. Sounds good. Can't believe how many bowls there are in Alabama this year. The Birmingham Bowl. That's going to be Houston against Auburn. Now, this is a really interesting matchup because Houston lost to Cincy badly in the AAC championship game, and Auburn almost beat Bama and took them 4 overtimes in a really painful loss. So I think Auburn, being that this bowl is in Alabama, I think they're going to take care of Houston here, even though Houston's 11-2.
Mad respect for my brother Steve, who's been in Houston since 1977. And he and I were both born there in the 1950s. Got to go for Houston.
All right, sounds good. First Responder Bowl in University Park, Texas. That's Louisville, and I learned how to pronounce Louisville correctly with Mom living in Kentucky. Now it's not Louisville. Louisville against Air Force, who's 9-3 this year. Let's see. Louisville is a basketball. Sorry, I did it again. Louisville is a basketball school, and it shows in their record. So I'm pulling for Air Force.
I'm going to pull for Air Force soon. Here's the point. I've actually watched some Air Force because I had a son who was there for a year. And you know what? They do the triple option still. The quarterback sometimes has 5 to 10 passes a game, and they run the ball 50 times. And they have every option off that. So the question I would ask, and I haven't studied this, is can Louisville handle the triple option, which most teams don't see? If they can't, then Air Force will run up 300 yards rushing and be 3 or 5 for 58 yards passing, and they'll win the game. But if Louisville knows how to stop that, and didn't we teach that in Red Barons, or was that at prep school football? I had to teach that the tackle takes the dive, the end takes the quarterback, and the outside either linebacker or a safety or cornerback, if you have coming up, takes the first pitch man. Mm-hmm. And that's and people, you got to, John, people got to stay home. Don't be a hero. And if everybody keeps to their person, you at least have a one-on-one. You could lose that one-on-one, but you should be able to at least get a one-on-one, which is all you ask for in football, right?
Absolutely, for sure. That is great analysis right there. We are going on to the Holiday Bowl, which Michigan has played in before. That one's in San Diego, California, and that's UCLA against NC State. That's essentially going to be a home game for UCLA. Being Californian now for almost 9 years, I've amassed quite a lot of UCLA friends. Now, I errantly said that the Boston College Eagles were the Bruins. I believe UCLA are the Bruins. Can you confirm that, Dad?
Yes.
Okay, I've got UCLA.
I've been on the UCLA campuses multiple times. My father lived within a mile of the UCLA campus for 51 years, 1962 to 2013. So both when he lived in Westwood and when he lived in Brentwood, I was very close to the UCLA campus. I went there. I studied in the library. I kind of feel like my dad always said for years, oh, you should come undergrad, grad, whatever, go to UCLA. I never did. But I do feel a little bit of kinship. So absolutely UCLA.
All right, sounds good. We have the Liberty Bowl next in Memphis, Tennessee. That's Texas Tech against Mississippi State. I'm taking a 7-5 SEC team over a 6-6 Big 12 team, just based on the fact that there's 2 SEC teams in the national semifinal and 0 Big 12 teams. So Mississippi State for me. Dad, who you got?
Well, just because I know an academic at Mississippi State that I don't like and one at Texas Tech that I do like, and on that version alone, and let me say as a scholar, my sample's not large enough or representative enough. It's ridiculous for me to make a conclusion on one person, an N of one. And you know that, John, in data analytics. I'm still going for Texas Tech.
All right, sounds good. Let's start talking about some Big Ten teams, huh? Guaranteed Rate Bowl. That's in Phoenix, Arizona. That's an 8-4 Minnesota Golden Gophers against the 6-6 West Virginia Mountaineers. I got a pull for Minnesota here, Dad.
I do too for Big Ten. And if that crazy guy hadn't left from West Virginia, do you know who I mean, their previous coach?
Not Les Miles.
No. A guy with long, stringy hair, like 50 years old. I mean, a real gunslinger kind of guy. When he was there, and he left a year or two ago, they were so exciting to watch. But of course, the Big Ten stuff. So I'm a Big Ten guy.
Awesome. As am I. Let's move on to Boston Ma, as the car guys would say. Fenway Bowl. That's Virginia at 6-6 against Southern Methodist University at 8-4. Tell you what, Mom and I went to Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati to watch SMU get trounced by Cincinnati. They looked so sloppy. I think Virginia takes this one as a good ACC team.
UVA is the creation of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is one of my favorite people in the history of the world. Anything UVA, academically, sports-wise, I support unless they're playing against Michigan. UVA.
All right. Next up is the Pinstripe Bowl, which I wish. Actually, I don't wish Michigan was playing in it, but Dad and I are going to be in New York during the Pinstripe Bowl. That's on December 29th. That's Virginia Tech against Maryland. Maryland's got Tua Tagovailoa's younger brother as their QB. He was pretty good against Michigan, but not good enough. I'm glad that they ended up bowl eligible. I'm glad to see them in a bowl game. And I think a 6-6 Big Ten team is better than a 6-6 ACC team. What do you think, Dad?
The University of Maryland, College Park.
All right. Next up is the Cheez-It Bowl. Orlando, Florida. Cheez-It with a huge college game day commercial presence this fall. That's Clemson at 9-3 against Iowa State at 7-5. So Clemson had a disappointing season. Dabo Swinney's going to have these guys fired up. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder, having made it to the national semifinal last year. I like Clemson.
I'm going with Iowa State. They're one of the great wrestling schools in the country. Not that necessarily bleeds over. But I have a funny story about a wrestling coach with a librarian at a conference They were from Iowa State. They were very fine people and very good people. So I've always felt good about Iowa State, although I do pull for Iowa in the Iowa State annual game. But I'm going for Iowa State here.
All right, next up we got Oklahoma and Oregon. What an amazing matchup. I love this matchup so much. That's in the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio, Texas on December 29th. Oklahoma won a thrilling Big 12 championship game against Oklahoma State, while Oregon got spanked for the second time this season by Utah in the Pac-12 final. So I like Oklahoma for this reason.
Well, guess what? I miss Pre, and my dog misses Pre, and we all miss Pre. We're pulling for University of Oregon. Right. Sorry.
Good. No, sounds good.
I'll try not to get so emotional.
We got the Duke's Mayo Bowl next in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's the UNC Tar Heels against the USC Gamecocks. Surprising we don't see this matchup happen more often, especially in a bowl game. South Carolina beat Michigan a couple bowls ago. They're stronger in football than UNC. So I've got the Gamecocks. Dad?
So, yeah, the border, flagships playing each other, that doesn't do anything for me. UNC Chapel Hill is one of the premier public flagships. There are like 7 of them. And I think everybody knows who they are. And if you don't, ask me. But UNC Chapel Hill is one of them. So mad respect for them on academic grounds. Never been to that campus. I've been close, but I haven't been there. It's a beautiful part of North Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill.
All right, sounds good. Next, we have a city in the country that is in my top 5 list for cities that I've never traveled to that I would really love to, and that's the Music City, Nashville. Music City Bowl, that's on December 30th. That's the Purdue Boilermakers at 8-4 against the Tennessee Volunteers at 7-5. Purdue was thought to be a contender for a minute there in the Big Ten West Division. I think they beat Michigan State. They fell short in November, though. Tennessee, meanwhile, hasn't been relevant in years. I'm pulling for the Boilermakers in the Big Ten. What you got, Dad?
Yeah, I pulled for Purdue for Big Ten. And didn't we watch that game in the Evanston B&B that you got?
Yes.
And Purdue looked awesome.
Yes.
I mean,
right.
Who were they playing, Iowa or someone? Mm-hmm. They shut down a really good team.
Yep.
So I have a very good impression of Purdue. I think they're going to win that.
Yeah, good analysis. I do remember watching that after the Northwestern Rutgers game.
Exactly.
Yeah. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas Bowl also on December 30th. That's Wisconsin against Arizona State. Wisconsin blew it in the regular season finale. I don't remember who they played, but if they had won that game, they would have played Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. Instead, they lost. They're going to be fired up because of that. I'm going with the Badgers. Who you got, Dad?
Wisconsin is similar to this year's Cleveland Browns team in that they can look awesome beating Cincinnati, a good Cincinnati team, 41-16 one week, and then get spanked by New England 45-7 the next week. Wisconsin is a very similar team. If their best team shows up, I don't know that they can beat everyone in the country, but they could beat everyone except the top 5. They really can. But if the other team shows up, then as Gordon Gee used to say, the Little Sisters of the Poor high school could beat them.
All right. That makes a lot of sense.
Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. The Tax Slayer Bowl is next in Jacksonville, Florida, and that is Wake Forest against Texas A&M. Wake Forest was thought to be a college football playoff hopeful coming out of the Big 12, but as Lee Corso used to say, not so fast. Texas A&M is the only team in the country that has beaten Alabama, and not only this year, but has beaten Alabama recently. So I've got Texas A&M.
Well, since Dr. Grimberg and Carrie Grimberg, although I think she goes by Carrie O'Connor now, are both Wake Forest PhDs from the old Huntington block, I'll pull for Wake Forest.
Sounds good. The Arizona Bowl's next from Tucson, and it's nice to see Central Michigan playing so late in the bowl season against Boise State, the team that is home to the blue field turf. Despite the blue field turf, I'm pulling for a MAC team here in Central.
I am total MAC. It's CMU, Mount Pleasant.
All right, Tony the Tiger Bowl, and from El Paso, Texas, Miami of Florida at 7-5, playing against Washington State. I don't know anything about these two teams this year. They both were elite football schools at the turn of the millennium. But you know what, Dad? Bernie Kosar went to Miami, so I got the Hurricanes.
Yeah, Kosar did go to Miami, and I love Kosar, but I'm pulling for Washington State in this one.
All right, sounds good. That takes us to the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Florida. That's Michigan State at 10-2 against Pittsburgh at 11-2. Tell you what, Michigan State's running game is world class. Pittsburgh's strength of schedule in the ACC just won't have them prepared well enough for the Spartans. Michigan State.
Yeah, and this is the start of the really important games now. So absolutely Michigan State.
All right, sounds good. Let's move on to the first of two national semifinals, the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, Texas. There's on the back of my neck are standing up, even beginning to talk about this, having Michigan in the Final Four. Alabama's 12-1, their one loss being against Texas A&M, but boy, was that a close one in the Iron Bowl, the final game of the regular season against Auburn. They're going to be taking on an unblemished Cincinnati Bearcats at 13-0. You know what? Everything in the world wants me to pull for Cincy here. Having a sister and brother-in-law do so much great work at the UC hospitals, and having mom in suburban Cincinnati now as well. I just don't think they're going to have enough firepower or experience against the Crimson Tide. I think Alabama's going to win handily here. Dad, who you got? You with me, Dad? Can you hear me?
You froze for a while. I can hear you now.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, cool. So I have Alabama in the national semifinal. Who do you have?
Yeah, I think Alabama's going to take care of Cincinnati. If the team that beat, who did they beat last week?
Cincinnati, they beat.
No, who did Alabama beat last week?
Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC
Yeah,
championship.
yeah. If the team that beat Georgia shows up, I'm not sure any college team can beat them. But I don't know that you can play at that level. You and I both know, is Sanders still going to step up, make a great touchdown catch and two or three others? You know, is Roman Wilson going to get open? Are they going to use all three running backs? I don't know. If all those things happen, of course they'll win. But, you know, as well as I do, some games those things happen and some games they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know Alabama well enough, and I don't know Georgia well enough. But clearly Georgia showed that they were beatable. Of course, I'm going for Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to the Orange Bowl at Miami Gardens at Hard Rock Stadium a couple years ago when Michigan lost a absolute heartbreaker against Florida State. You know, when it comes down to this one this year, Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, on the other side of the ball, Hassan Haskins, Blake Corum, Cornelius Johnson, Andrew Anthony, they've all got to play their best football of the season. And are we going to be able to do that after a super emotional win against Ohio State at home and after absolutely annihilating Iowa in the Big Ten championship game? I think the answer to that is yes. I think that Michigan has been, just poked fun at for 24 years now, since our last national championship in 1997. I think that this is our year. If there's ever been a year, we're so much momentum coming out of this. I do like Michigan taking care of Georgia in a close one. Now we'll skip over to the national championship after we take care of these next couple of games here. But in the meantime, we've got the Fiesta Bowl in Glendale, Arizona, Notre Dame taking on Oklahoma State. Dad, who do you like in this first New Year's Day Bowl?
Oh, mad respect for Notre Dame always. Absolutely.
All right. I have, Oklahoma State would have made it to the college football playoff if they didn't lose the conference championship game to Oklahoma. Their head coach, his name's not coming to me right now, but I'm a man. I'm 40. I love that guy. I love how he shows up for his players. I've got Oklahoma State in this one taking care of Notre Dame, even though Notre Dame's only loss was a tough one at home against Cincinnati. That takes us to what did Bob Uford call the Rose Bowl? The granddaddy of them all. In Pasadena, California, we have the Rose Bowl, the best runner-up Big Ten team against the Pac-12 championship. That's Ohio State at 10-2. Love to call them the Big Ten runner-up, and Utah at 10-3, who won convincingly over Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. Dad, who do you have in the Tournament of Roses?
Ohio State.
I do too. I don't think this is going to be close. I think Ohio State's they're going to be so upset having lost to Michigan. I think this is going to be a 62-6 kind of game here. Sugar Bowl, New Orleans, Louisiana, yet another bowl on the bayou here. Baylor at 11-2 taking on Ole Miss at 10-2. I gotta give this one to Uncle Steven. Baylor at 11-2.
No, I'm with Baylor as well.
All right, next up.
Although you realize the university's in Waco and the medical school's in Houston.
Oh, okay. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, it's very rare, but that's the situation.
All right, sounds good. That takes us to the Outback Bowl in Tampa, Florida. That's Penn State against Arkansas. The Nittany Lions against the Razorbacks. And man, it took everything Michigan had, including that epic 50-yard run from Eric Hall, to allow us to beat Penn State in Nittany Valley in a very harsh environment, 21-17 a couple weeks ago. So Penn State is going to take care of Arkansas here. Dad, who you got?
I do think with the extension that Penn State coach will be there forever, and he's a great coach. And this is Big Ten, so I'm really pulling for Penn State. I always pull for Penn State unless they're playing Michigan.
Me too. It takes us to the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, Florida. Iowa against Kentucky. The Hawkeyes are taking on an SEC team. You know, Kentucky's normally a basketball school, but at that 9-3 record in the SEC, that's extremely impressive. I want to pull for Kentucky just based on, I want to reward that. But at the same time, got to give credit to the Big Ten West champions in Iowa. I like the Hawkeyes. Who you got?
Oh, I got to go for Iowa. You know, the MFA and creative writing. I mean, Iowa City's a beautiful town. And Kentucky is a third world country. So I'm pulling for Iowa.
All right. I think we'll have to edit that out. Next up, we got the Texas Bowl in Houston, Texas. That's Kansas State against LSU. Man, LSU, what a disappointing season. Ed Ogeron's finale on the Bayou. So that's quite a bummer. You know, this is a tough one for me, but I got to pull for Ed Ogeron in his final game ever. Who you got?
He's coaching the game, even though he's fired after the season, right?
That's right.
Oh my God. Of course I'm going for LSU. If I had his language down, I would throw something down right now, but I wouldn't do it justice.
Sounds good. That takes us to the national championship, the Natty, January 10th in Indianapolis, same location as the Big Ten championship game a couple weeks ago. We both have Michigan against Alabama. Dad, who wins it all?
I'm saying Michigan does 23-21.
All right. Sounds good. I like that. I think it's going to be about right with that same kind of scoring. I do think that Jake Moody, we haven't called on Jake Moody very much to do serious work with his foot, but I think that it's going to be something like 30-27 Michigan final. And that's with 3 field goals from Jake Moody. So it's going to be a super close one. It's going to take everything we got to make it happen. But I think Michigan takes home our 15th or so national championship on January 10th.
Let me just say this as well, which I think aligns with what you just said. If the winner has to score more than 30 points, it will likely be Alabama. If we can keep the score under 30, I think Michigan can win because their offense is significantly better than ours. But ours is complex enough. And again, we've got to get all 3 running backs good carries, Corum,
Son Haskins and
Edwards.
True freshman.
And then we have to run jet sweep once or twice to Roman Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to do all those things in the first quarter. And if we're really moving the ball, I see that, long, slow distance, 7, 8, 9 minute drives, we eat up clock and we get a touchdown.
Yeah.
And we do that a couple times, and a couple times we get field goals, and our defense plays strong. That is the recipe to beat them because they're electric. And isn't it interesting? Each of the 3 Ohio State great wide receivers had great, not good, great catches against Michigan, and we won by 15.
Yeah.
You had said they're each going to make circus catches that are worthy of a highlight reel for the year. You'd say, oh, and then we won by 15. You wouldn't say that.
Yeah, I agree. And, I'll add to that by saying we've known that Michigan's flawed in certain areas. You know, you and I have both talked about Cade McNamara's arm and how we want to see more reps from JJ McCarthy. But what it comes down to at the end of the day is this team has demonstrated time and time again, especially in November and again in December in the Big Ten championship game, that we can be an elite team as long as everyone shows up. There were some really scary ones against Penn State, against Nebraska, that really showed where we're vulnerable. I also really didn't like the first quarter of the Ohio State game when Cade threw that interception when we were in the red zone. Similar to your point earlier, if you had told me that Cade McNamara was going to throw an interception in the red zone against Ohio State, based on how little he's been passing the ball all season, I wouldn't have thought that we would have won that game, but we won handily by double digits. So, you know, that's the greatest thing about college football is that everyone's flawed. There's no NFL caliber team. There's nowhere near any NFL caliber team. And that's what makes it real. And I think that Michigan's got to stay real and just get down to business, flaunt our strengths. And one other thing I'd like to add about the national championship game that also helped us against Ohio State is a little bit of trickery. Remember that Statue of Liberty play that we won, or that we got a touchdown on our first drive, I believe that was. And then we also had a flea flicker or two in there as well. So I think it's going to take everything we have. I do like Michigan winning the national championship.
And I think 2 to 3 trick plays a game is fine. I think once you get beyond that, you're not respecting the game. Because the whole point is the trick play works because it's so counter to football logic. But yeah, if you do that judiciously and you execute well, you know, that's great. I do think this will be part of Harbaugh's legacy. And if he even wins this championship, wins 2 more games, he's up there with Bo, you know, regardless of what else he does. And then I think it's ridiculous because for me, if I had been a premier athlete, there's 20 or 30 D1 schools with really good academic reputations. And it wouldn't really matter to me if they were ranked in the top 5 or the top 25, or they were just a D1 program. Do you see what I mean? But it's crazy to me that if you are the number 1 team, suddenly your recruiting gets so much better.
Yeah.
You know, to me, if like, I don't know, NC State was great and South Carolina was great, I would still rather go to Chapel Hill or UVA because of they're in the same fucking conference, and you know, or I think South Carolina isn't though, but at any rate. All right, well, that was fun.
That was a blast. Just a reminder to everybody tuning in at home, we have 43 bowl this Friday, and we are so excited that Michigan is in the position they're in to win a national championship. Let's see what happens.
And you and I differed on like 10 of them or so.
It'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. But all in all, thank you so much for another year of bowl analysis, Dad. It was so incredible to go to the Northwestern game with you in Ann Arbor and again with the Northwestern Rutgers game in Evanston. So we'll be tuning in together for the national semifinal in New York on December 31st. So we hope everybody else will tune in, and thank you guys for listening.
Okay, good night.
Cheers.